Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We've got a brand new episode of Daily Palantir, and today we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Number one, we got a brand new partnership, the first partnership for Palantir of 2024, none other than a healthcare partnership. So we're going to be discussing that, the implications of that, why I think it's important. I did a 30-minute deep dive yesterday on it, but this is going to be a little bit more of a 7 to 8 minute version and explanation of why it's so important, and I'll link the 30-minute one if you guys want to go deeper into that in the description. Second of all, we have a White House meeting with Palantir. And that meeting is particularly around the issue of Ukraine. I don't know why that's happening a year later since Palantir started working with Ukraine in 2022, but we're going to talk about that. They also met with Anduril. Palantir and Anduril are both working together on another $1.5 billion contract, so there's a lot to discuss from that. And then finally, I want to play a clip of a podcast that I did with Sachin. You guys may know him. He is someone who is all in on Palantir in his U.S. equity portfolio. This is from the summer. I just was digging through some of my content. I found this clip again where we were talking about energy. And the reason I want to play this clip is because Palantir right now is absolutely dominating healthcare. It seems like they're trying to really monopolize that vertical and then expand from there. There's other verticals that they're into, and one of those is energy. So I want to play that clip from Sachin talking about why energy is such an important vertical. A lot of stuff to discuss. We're also going to go through some price action. It's Tuesday. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start off with price action. First of all, NVIDIA 540, just absolutely insane. I think a lot of the people right now that own NVIDIA, they are struggling with the question of, should I sell it? And it's very difficult to have that question, right? Should you sell NVIDIA? Because if the growth is just going to keep growing, then even if it's, even if you're sitting on a 5-6x, maybe you shouldn't sell. Hopefully one day, as Palantir shareholders, we have that same problem with Palantir. Maybe it's $100 a share and we're like, man, I'm up a lot, but this bad boy's not stopping. So why would I sell? For now, we don't have that problem yet. 1644 on Palantir, down 1.39% of the day. Really doing a really good job from recovery from the Jefferies downgrade when we were at $13, or the downgrade we got to $13, hit 1560 at the lowest. Honestly, I'm starting to believe that downgrade was oddly timed because institutions just wanted more shares. I don't really think Jefferies believed that Palantir should be worth $13, and it gave a really good dip to the institutions that bought. Kathy bought, some other companies bought, a lot of retail investors bought, I bought. Right now back at 1644. Yesterday it was at 1680 at the high, so doing pretty okay on a day that's relatively flat or negative for the entire market. Palantir holding up all right at 1645. So far, 26 million shares have been traded as of 2:30 p.m. Market cap 35 billion. And Palantir down 1.32% on the day. Okay, next thing we got to discuss is the partnership we got yesterday. That was a really, really exciting partnership to see in the world of Palantir. Here we go, folks. Option Care Health selects Palantir's AI platform for enterprise-wide digital transformation. I'm going to read a couple of things from this partnership, and then I want to talk about the implications of this. So the Option Care Health is the nation's largest independent national provider of home and alternative site infusion services. I didn't even know home and alternative site infusion services was a thing, but apparently it's a $40 billion market, and it's a actual thing in terms of personalized home delivery of care. On top of that, this is a public company worth $6 billion listed on the NASDAQ. It's not, just some random company that they're doing work with. It's a company that obviously has a budget to spend on enabling AI throughout their platform, and that's what they are doing. They are selecting Palantir's AIP to do nurse scheduling, patient onboarding, purchasing optimization, supply chain execution, among a lot of other potential use cases. Some quotes. CEO of Option Care Health says, "We are excited to partner with one of the most innovative leaders in AI-powered software and leverage their platform to expertise to enhance our intelligent technology ecosystem focused on streamlining processes, enhancing our expertise, improving the patient experience, and optimizing clinical outcomes." He says, "I believe that utilizing Palantir's Foundry and AIP will allow us to innovate rapidly, built on the best principles, and help ensure our approach to AI and machine learning incorporates the strongest foundations and provides strong protections and integrity for our stakeholders." Makes sense. We also got a quote from Alex Karp. We usually don't get Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, giving these types of quotes, and obviously this is probably a very big deal in my opinion. So Karp says, "Option Care Health is at the leading edge of deploying AI across the healthcare sector. We are so proud to support this effort, which builds on expanding presence in our commitment to the medical sector and will expedite and improve services to patients across the entire country." This is a big deal. This is a big deal. The reason this is a big deal, a couple of implications. Number one, it's a public company, so it's not just a small partnership. Palantir is going to be operationalizing their entire platform all across the entire country. As Karp says, delivering the best care to patients across the country is their motive, and if AIP can allow that, then obviously that's going to be incredibly special for Palantir with this partnership. Number two, how much is it worth? I don't know. It is a multi-year commercial partnership. My guess would be something like $2 to $3 million per year on top of 5 years. I have no information of if that's the case, but if I had to guess, that would be the case. If it's a little bit above that, then that means AIP is a little bit more in terms of how they're monetizing it, because their average revenue per client right now is $2.9 million per year. So we have no details on the actual pricing of this. Hopefully we do get details soon, and in Q4 we'll get more clarity. But in general, it seems like a pretty big deal for a pretty big a customer that is going to actually implement this across all their different hospitals and different areas across the country. Now, the other thing that I really want to say about this, which is why it's so important, is it proves to the diversity of what Palantir is doing in the healthcare sector. So this is what I wrote on my newsletter yesterday, dailypalantir.substack.com. They have a bunch of partnerships in the healthcare sector, and as we read through this, for some companies it's AI drug discovery, for some it's medical supply chains, and for others it's nurse staffing. You got Cardinal Health Supply Chain, a data analytics company that's working with Palantir. You got United Kingdom's NHS, obviously the NHS contract. You got Novartis, fourth largest pharmaceutical company on the planet using AI and Palantir's ontology for drug discovery. Concordance, another supply chain company in the healthcare space. NIH in America. Merck KGA, looking at big data sets and trying to do drug discovery with AI. Tampa Bay General, Cleveland Clinic, HCA Healthcare. HCA gave their presentation at AIPCon, basically showing how they're going to implement advanced analytics to streamline the hospital staffing processes. To me, it's becoming very clear. Healthcare is that vertical that Palantir is seemingly going after. They power 16% of beds in the United States. They're taking control over one of the largest healthcare systems that's socialized across the world in terms of the UK. And in my opinion, if tech companies become really big by starting small and dominating when they're small, kind of Facebook at Harvard, Netflix with like getting people to do the DVDs, and then they go to streaming, then Facebook goes all across the world, it just seems obvious that maybe the way for Palantir to scale, like massively scale, is to take over one vertical. And that's why I want to play the energy clip later at the end of this episode, because they may be trying to do a multifaceted approach to attack multiple verticals, and I don't know how successful that's going to be. I don't know if they're just super ambitious and they're like, we're going to take over this and this and this at the same time. So far in the top line growth, in terms of revenue growth, we just haven't seen that. So it's not happening yet. If they hone in, that doesn't mean forget about the other verticals, but if they hone in on maybe defense and healthcare for the next year, I don't know if that's the worst thing in the world, because it seems very obvious, like in a business, you have to double down on what's working, right? No matter what it is, whether it's a lemonade stand or it's a Fortune 500 company, if you don't double down on what's working, it's so hard to find any resemblance of success in business. So if you find something that works, you really got to push it to the limit as long as you enjoy doing it, and maybe you can take that further. In the context of Palantir and healthcare, it obviously seems, given all the different partnerships that I just rambled off, and I'm sure there's a couple more that I forgot to list, healthcare is the vertical that Palantir is winning in. Option Care Health and home infusion services. Someone actually posted a comment on the YouTube video yesterday. Let me read what they said. It was really interesting because I didn't even know it was a thing, and they're working in these different verticals. So they said, we got Jim McClassy, thank you for sharing this. He said, infusion is a $14 billion industry. Palantir will not only fix their scheduling issues, matching nurses with patients, but will improve their inventory issues, bringing all the right things together at the right time. This is what Palantir is excellent at, a $6 billion in sales, going after the rest of a $14 billion home infusion market. I would not want to be competing with them. Their success will draw even more nurses from the competition. So Option Care Health doing $4 to $5 billion TTM, going after an entire $14 billion industry in the United States. And now you got Palantir optimizing that entire ecosystem that you're building. It's going to be hard for a lot of the other service providers that are competing with Option Care Health to actually beat them. I think that if Palantir goes after healthcare and ruthlessly, explicitly decides to be the best, as Shyam Sankar said, once healthcare tech startup in the world, there is a chance that they can do this for other industries. Now, that doesn't mean they forget about the other stuff. Obviously, defense, energy, manufacturing, all that stuff's important, and a variety of other deals they're working on. But if they can do healthcare at 100% and do the other ones at like 60 to 70%, I think maybe that's where the top line growth starts to reaccelerate for Palantir. I could be wrong. There could be other things that accelerate top line growth. But so far, I mean, if you're a Palantir shareholder and you believe in the healthcare industry, this is one of those things that not only there's a crap ton of money, and healthcare is like a $4 trillion market, but it's also just good for humanity, right? Like you are the difference between making sure that patients get better care, and all of us at one point will need care. And so I would, it makes me happy that Palantir is actually optimizing that across the entire world. Okay, next thing we got to talk about is the news that came out yesterday in regards to the White House. So here we go. This came out late last night. Palantir executives met with the White House to discuss technologies that would help Ukraine defeat Russia. This is reported from Bloomberg. White House officials met with executives from Palantir, Anduril, Fortum, Skydio, and other defense companies on Monday to discuss battlefield technologies that can aid Ukraine in its bid to combat Russia's invasion. The group spoke about demining technologies, unmanned aerial systems, and other products that counter Russian uses of drones and other weapon systems. The goals, officials said, is to ready the U.S. defense industrial base for both Kyiv's immediate needs and any future conflicts or critical areas. Now, couple points of analysis on this. Number one, $886 billion was just approved for defense spending. That is 56% of the overall $1.6 trillion that was approved in the budget negotiations that happened a couple days ago. So 56% of the money that we approved is going to defense. that means there's a lot of money for the White House to dish out if they're really serious. And this is not just a little meeting, but this is a meeting that's going to result in some deals. Number two, I have no idea why the White House is just now meeting with executives from Palantir and Anduril. I could be wrong, and maybe they met with them in the past. There was never been any explicit reporting from my understanding, and I follow this stuff very closely, is if Palantir and Anduril executives. Anduril is another startup in the private space that's doing defense that was actually founded by 3 former Palantir employees. I never heard of them meeting with Biden. Really, over the past couple of years. Palantir went to Kyiv in June 2022 to meet with Zelensky. Karp went. Didn't hear much about Biden saying anything about that, or Biden, like, there was no acknowledgement from my understanding. Maybe privately they did, but at least publicly not. It is very weird that in a month we're going to have 2 years of an anniversary on this ongoing war, and now Biden is deciding, hey, I want to meet with these executives and see what we can do to either end this war or make Ukraine fully set. We've given, I think, close to $150 billion to Ukraine in just pure funding. Look, my simple belief here is that a lot of that money is probably going to nonsense. It's probably going to corruption. It's probably just going to shit, right? To be quite frank. Maybe, now that we have $886 billion approved, maybe we could just think a little bit carefully about how we allocate some capital. And if we can give a little bit of it to Palantir and Anduril and really let them go to work and build the software they need and deploy the software, which Palantir is already doing in Ukraine, maybe we would have some better results. At this point, I don't know who's winning the war. I don't know if Ukraine's winning. I don't know if Russia's winning. I know Palantir is at least stopping Ukrainian soldiers from dying. For example, they talked about demining technologies. Palantir was reported in Time magazine last month that their geospatial intelligence via the Meta Constellation product is helping Ukrainians find landmines so they don't step in them and blow up. So that's like a really important thing that Palantir is doing. That's one use case of their software in Ukraine. But I don't know if that means Ukraine is actually beating Russia. I really don't. And if Ukraine doesn't beat Russia, I don't necessarily think it's the problem with Palantir. Like, oh, their software is there. No, I think it's just because this is all a mess. This is all insane. This is all bureaucratic. And at some level, you have to just negotiate and sign a treaty and move on. Like, I don't know how this ends, but I do know that Palantir is one of the technologies that is stopping people from dying. So if the White House is really serious about negotiating and actually allowing there to be a change and for, some deals to come in place where maybe Ukraine has a fighting shot, they need to allocate the money. It's time to pony up because you haven't paid, to the best of my knowledge, for the past couple of years. You let this thing just play out. You just randomly gave money to Ukraine assuming that things would be okay. Now maybe it's time to pay Palantir and Anduril. And I'm not saying hundreds of billions of dollars. I'm just saying, like, they deserve something, especially we don't even know if Palantir is getting paid for Ukraine yet, to be able to do better in Ukraine and stop some of the bad stuff that's happening, or hopefully mitigate some of the things that are happening as well. Ultimately, if you're a Palantir shareholder, this is promising, in my opinion, knowing that Palantir met with the White House. We also had a couple of weeks ago, Alex Karp was at the 9th annual AI forum at the White House. A couple months before that, he was in that epic picture with him and Elon Musk talking in Congress about all the different stuff that was going on in regards to AI safety. We know that one of the main leaders of Palantir's AI, Anthony Back, is on the board of the new ethical safety regulation implementation force of AI. I'm saying the name wrong, but that is something that has happened over the past couple of months. We're seeing a lot of updates in regards to Palantir continuing to have a focus on how the government is trying to deploy capital for AI, deploy capital for defense spending, and ultimately make sure that they have good relationships. It took them 20 years to build these relationships so that no matter what administration is in place, that administration knows Palantir is the company that I have to work with and negotiate with because they're the company that can get the job done. So I think it's a good sign that we met with the White House, but hopefully it actually materializes into something. One final thing I'll say is Palantir is in running to win a $1.5 billion contract with Anduril. It's a Titan contract. We should have clarity on that in the next 2 months. They're competing against Raytheon and C3 AI. So it's Raytheon and C3 AI versus Palantir and Anduril. If we lose that contract, that's a major red flag. I don't think we're losing that contract. It's interesting to think that the White House brought in Palantir and Anduril to have these discussions. And it makes sense because Palantir and Anduril are software, hardware-based defense technology companies versus a Raytheon and a C3 AI, which I don't even know what the hell C3 AI is doing at this point. It leads me to believe that this Titan contract, either we're splitting it with them or we're winning the whole damn thing, but it really is hard for me to imagine we're losing that contract. So I think that is a good sign to see from Palantir as well. Okay, last clip I'm going to play. I dug up an old clip of me and Sachin talking about energy being a massive vertical for Palantir outside of healthcare. The reason I wanted to show this clip is because we're talking about healthcare a lot. I think there's a lot of updates coming on in the world of energy that Palantir is going to be able to do. And Sachin is a geophysicist and he's been studying energy for his whole life. So this is his perspective on why Palantir should really try to go after energy. They're already going after it, and what the TAM could look like if they try to become a beast in that vertical. That's it. Thank you guys for listening and watching. And here's the clip. Is there a massive new world we're getting into in terms of renewable, or even just the same oil and gas that Palantir can capture?
So let me start with, we're talking about production and lifting cost. Okay, world produce around 100 million barrels a day. I'm not talking gas. Okay, even if you reduce that price by $2, that is $200 million a day.
Right.
Okay, then there is gas, then there is transportation, then there is refining, then there is all the maintenance, then you talk about grid optimization, then you talk about renewable energy. Okay, so basically, like, what is the TAM for, no, I wouldn't call it TAM, I would call it like a value creation per year. Okay, it's definitely more than $1 trillion. And you say that somebody who's creating a $1 trillion value can actually capture 5 to 7%. That means the TAM of that industry that industries can capture is somewhere between 50 to 100 billion.
Right.
That is only energy I'm talking right now. Okay. And if you want to say like how much Palantir can capture, that is up to Palantir. There is 50 to 100 billion, maybe 150 billion. Okay, because what we are talking is morely in terms of operating expense. I'm not talking in terms of capital expenses.
And why are these big data problems? Why are these energy issues a question of big data that requires Palantir software?
So let me simplify it in a way is, see, if you are looking for renewables, okay, that means the source at which you create energy and the source at which you distribute, it's a very different node to node model versus if you are doing a nuclear reactor and the nuclear reactor is trying to get. Okay, so the nature of problem is different. First, the points you are touching in and out are different. The amount of sensors you are going to use on facility, on distribution, on the consumption behavior, on people is going to be different. So at the end of the day, I think people misinterpret when we talk about energy transition at times. Like, it's not just about replacing fossil fuel energy with the renewable energy. You cannot just replace it. You also have to ensure that it is consumed well.
Right.
Okay, because it's a low margin energy. So why would you produce excess when people are not using it properly? That's a wastage.
Right.
So for example, like if you have a margin of $20, you really don't care if you lose $4 and $5. But if your margin is 4 cents, you really care if you lose 1 cent. So the nature of problem is actually very different now than what it used to be. That means earlier you could do it well even without solving your data problem, because your king can go on Vienna and they say, okay, we cut production by 500,000 barrels and the market goes like $25 up. You cannot do that in renewables. So it is the only companies that are going to succeed here are the companies who solve the data problem.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting because obviously the world is transitioning more to renewable, and I mean we're going to be on oil and gas for a while. And the partnerships that Palantir has launched, you know, when you see BP buy 1% of the company after using the software, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't see a lot of enterprise clients saying, let's buy 1% of the software we're using. You know, no one's buying 1% of a Snowflake or a Databricks because it's that valuable. And when you see stuff like that as an investor, it definitely makes you curious, as you said, but what exactly is Palantir doing in this space?
So let's go back to 2014. Okay, I think people need to understand like why BP did it. First, it was a strategic investment. So I mean, strategy is an abused word. Everybody called, I'm thinking a strategy we're doing. See, first thing BP went to Palantir was they said that, okay, this is a problem we are not good at. So we need an outside help. We don't need Schlumberger, we don't need Halliburton, we don't need companies that already exist, because everybody is as bad as we are. So that is the self awareness that a lot of companies don't have. And I'll tell you, if you have been a part of oil and gas industry between 2005 to 2007 and between 2011 to 2014, it's such an alpha egoistic industry because you are making so much money. The people's egos were like this. So at that particular time, I think BP has this kind of visibility ki, yeah, our industry as total is not good. We need to go outside. That was huge. Second thing is why they invested. Like, this is one thing which I was always telling to all the companies I work with, and they do all these corporate investments. I said, you do corporate investment with a vision and with a view and with a piece of paper that can hold the testament of time. It's just not you just people say, oh, I signed MOU with this company. See, MOU is a piece of shit because it will not hold testament of time.
Yeah.
So BP bought a stake in Palantir because they wanted to show that Palantir put resources and effort in solving their problem, because they knew Palantir doesn't have solution, industry doesn't have solution. So we need to build a partnership that delivers a solution in time. And in order to do that, we need to steer the strategic direction of the company. We need to get the strategic resources. So Palantir actually ended up working with them in solving problem that didn't exist at that particular time. They had
Right.
solution somewhere else. So that's where they actually bought it. Now, when you take that kind of case with a company like Snowflake, yeah, Snowflake doesn't offer you that kind of flexibility. Why Snowflake become ultra popular? Anyone who has dealt with AWS site reliability management in 2013, 2014, the first thing you ask them, they say, oh, we need some solution for it. So Snowflake provided that solution. But Snowflake never provided a promise that we can solve something that has not been solved today.
Right.
That is what people need to answer. People take stakes in Snowflake because they use their product and they say, oh, this company is going somewhere. Why don't we invest some money in it? They don't go to Snowflake and they say, okay, solve this problem for me. I know exactly one company which have been with Snowflake for a very long time to solve a particular problem, okay, related to subsurface engineering. At some point, they just gave up and they say, okay, we'll go with Palantir. Okay, so that's what I said. There's a simplicity part and then there's a complexity part. Snowflake has mastered the art of simplicity, and Palantir has mastered the art of complexity. The the sad part is that the complexity with Palantir solves, they have also brought it into their go-to-market strategy, and they really need to sort it out. They have done excellent work in last 2 years, but it is nowhere near where it should be
From a sales perspective is what you're saying.
from a sales perspective.